Gentlemen, if you don't know who you are, I'm talking about your strengths as well as your weaknesses, you are playing the dating game blind. All right, you're guessing. And women can feel that. And if they feel it, they're simply not going to be attracted to you. You have to know your strengths. You have to know your weaknesses. You got to be able to play up your strengths, and you got to be able to deal with your weaknesses or turn them into strengths. All right, today we're talking about why you need to assess yourself, a realistic assessment of yourself as a man, and how to use what you find to instantly become more attractive. Next.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Gentlemen, welcome. I'm MarcusVanHorne, date coach, and I am on a mission to help men like you build and refine their skills needed for dating and finding success with women. If that's you, and you're interested in all that wonderful stuff, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you know when I put up new content and you do not miss it. Let's get into this. So why does a self-assessment matter to begin with, right? So women notice everything. They don't just notice the good stuff. They also notice the bad stuff. So they notice that the areas where you are actually weak, they will pick up on that. Now, a recent study found that women rate confidence, ambition, emotional intelligence, and physical fitness as top attractive traits. Now, what order those particular traits are in, I guess depends on the actual woman. But here's the deal. Most men, and I'm probably guilty of this myself, overestimate their strengths in those particular areas. And the problem is, if you don't see yourself clearly, realistically, you can't improve anything, right? If you think your body is tight and you think you're great, but you're actually, 30, 45% body fat, and you're not as strong, or your physique is not up to the point where you think it is, you're not going to work on it because you think you're already there. So let's start with the good stuff, right? Let's start with the positive. Your strengths, knowing your strengths. Now, it almost seems like obvious, right? Like, do I need to talk about my strengths? If they're my strengths, why do I need to understand them? Why do I need to work on them? But this is the easy part. When you know your strengths, you can lead with them. You need to lead with them. These are the things that are going to define you up front, right? These are the things you're going to feel the most confident about. Again, going back into confidence, I have a video on where I talk about confidence is everything, right? So you have to know what areas you really excel in. What are the things that you can easily feel good about? You're confident and you can lead with that. Like, are you funny? You use humor to connect, right? That's going to be your thing. You're always going to be that guy who tells a joke, you get a woman to laugh. Getting women to laugh is usually like top of the list of one of the things you definitely want to do to break the ice. All right. Are you ambitious? Show her you've got direction. You've got like a place that you're trying to go places. You're trying to get things done. You're that dude. If that's who you are, that's going to come out in the way you talk when you have a conversation with a woman. Are you socially smooth? Do you take the lead in conversations? Are you that dude who just knows how to talk, how to give good conversation? You really can exchange ideas and you really know how to express yourself, and you take a complete, like, you've just got swag when it comes to conversation. That's a strength and you should use it. Now, for me personally, my height has always been one of my strengths. Like, so entering a club, a bar, a restaurant, a party, I knew that and I played it up to my advantage. I'd be at the bar and I specifically stood like extra tall just because I knew that my height was sort of dominant. I hovered over the bar, I hovered over most of the people next to me, and that's something that I played up. And then for a bit, way back when, being light skinned was a thing, but then that, it worked to my favor for a little bit, and then that whole thing changed, and it became one of my weaknesses. But enough about that. All right, let's get to the hard talk, the stuff that people don't like to acknowledge, and probably the more important part of this video: knowing your weaknesses. All right, so here's where a lot of people have an issue, which in itself, to me, is an issue. All right, the ability to realistically assess yourself. Weaknesses aren't bad; they're opportunities, but only if you're the type of man who can do a real self-analysis and you're the type of guy who wants to improve yourself. All right, to quote Tony Robbins, you can't fix what you don't face. Now, I have a personality where if I find a deficiency in something, I find something is off, or I feel like I could do better in a particular category, It's just my natural desire to be like, okay, I got to fix that. I got to work on that. I need to figure out how to do better at that. If that's not your personality and you're one of these guys who thinks you got it all worked out or nothing needs to change and you're kind of, oh, I'm good the way I am. I'm just going to stay here. So I'm going to stay status quo. If that's you, that's a weakness in itself and you need to get that addressed, right? But let's talk about some more common weaknesses that men have that women definitely do not like. Some of them are obvious. Poor hygiene and grooming. If you don't take care of yourself and your stuff is all off and maybe you don't know that. There are people who have bad breath who don't know they have bad breath. There are people who their grooming is not correct and they don't know it. There are people who can't dress but think they're doing okay. Low confidence or weak conversation skills. Some people can't talk. They're in a situation, they meet a woman, even if they're good looking. There are guys who are good looking who can't communicate well with women. They just don't have that thing. They either have a poor vocabulary or they have nothing to talk about. Again, I talk about that in one of my videos where I talk about upping your game, and you need to be leveling up as far as what you can talk about and how good you are at understanding the world, right? Then there's other things like lack of ambition. That's a turnoff for a lot of women. If you're not ambitious, you're not somebody who's a go-getter, you're not trying to climb that mountain, you're not continually trying to better yourself, that is a serious turnoff for women. It's got nothing to do with the financial part of it. It's not just money. It's about what are you trying to get accomplished? What are you trying to do with your life? Where are you going? What direction are you going? That is something that's a big, big turnoff for women. Do not sleep on that. If you are lacking ambition, work on that. The other thing, physical neglect. If you don't take care of your body, this is kind of an obvious one too, right? If you're somebody who's not taking care of your body, and this is one of your weaknesses, you're not hitting the gym regularly, you're not paying attention to a nutrition plan, you've got low energy, your fitness is kind of off, and you seem sort of frumpy or something or overweight, you need to assess that. You need to know, look, I know I could do better and I need to get that fixed. Also, emotional unavailability. If you're somebody who just doesn't have the ability to be emotional and to have conversations with women from a certain perspective, that's going to be considered a weakness as well, and you got to work on that. There's no reason to be ashamed of having weaknesses, right? As I said earlier when I first started this, right? We all have weaknesses. It's only when you identify the weak spots that you can actually work on them. The gym thing, the grooming thing, your mindset, your communication skills, whatever you need, but you've got to identify them. Now, at the end of the day, if you don't have any idea where you're failing, you won't be able to fix it. This leads into a very important component in all of this, probably the most important, right? It's getting honest feedback. Self-assessment isn't just you talking to yourself in the mirror, right? You need real feedback. If you just have a conversation with yourself in the mirror and go, yeah, I'm pretty good at this, I'm pretty good at that, maybe I can use improvement there. That's you with certain bias and certain insecurities that you may not want to acknowledge and certain things you're not paying attention to. So what do you need? A trusted friend or a mentor. You got to ask these people around you, what's one thing I do really well? Like what if you had to assess me, bro, like in a club or like in a situation with ladies, like where do you think I go wrong? What's my issue, right? And where can I improve? And then also, here's a kicker. Listen to women in your circle. They're women. You're trying to attract more women. You're trying to work on your weaknesses and your strengths. Talk to women. Talk to your sisters if you've got sisters. Talk to female friends, female coworkers. They're often going to give honest insight if you're open to it. Again, key word. The operative thing happening here, if you're open to it, you've got to be ready to change. You've got to be ready to acknowledge it. You can't be sensitive or have your feelings hurt or think that you're too good to change or something along those lines. You got to get that feedback. You've got to listen and you've got to be ready to take action. And let's say if you really, really want help and you want honest, objective feedback, like with no bias there, consider a professional coach or, get personality tests done and you can get objective results there. You talk to your therapist if you're seeing one and get feedback. Gentlemen, women see through fake confidence. But when you know your strengths and your weaknesses, you show up very authentic, very secure, and ready to grow. Humility and willingness to grow is very attractive. That's it. Own your strengths. Work on your weaknesses, whatever they may be. The sooner you get a handle on it all, the sooner you'll notice a bump up in your overall level of attraction. Let me know in the comments below what's the one strength you're proud of and one weakness that you are working to improve. Subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this message. You got to get the algorithm whole thing kicking in for me here. This is a brand new channel, so we got to get it going, all right? Stay focused, stay sharp, stay real. See you on the next one. Peace.